18th. It's Wednesday, the 8th of Jan. Welcome to today's Ag Markets Blast with myself and the awesome Angie from Consus. We'll just wait for Angie to join. Timing. Here she is. 1 second. Right, invite sent. So while she's joining, I will read the legals. So as usual, nothing discussed on this space. This session constitutes trading or investment advice, or if there's any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, Traders PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed its affiliates, which, as you know by now, includes the awesome Angie Setzer from Consus and myself. I'm going to say equally awesome, Ryan, because you got to big yourself up, and no one else will.
I will agree that you are equally awesome, if not more so.
Stop it.
More so awesome. Awesomer, if you will.
So. Stop it. You flirt. What's happening in the ags markets?
Oh, man, not too much this morning. We're playing the new trade headline game, right? We played this game on Monday. Now we're playing it on Wednesday. Part of me is waiting for no, that's not true. Maybe claim from Trump. Part of me thinks that maybe we're trying to get us to where we shouldn't be trusting these unnamed sources, or maybe this time's right. We'll see. Time will tell. But This morning's report from CNN, right, is that Trump is looking to tap into, a specialized type of rule or law that would provide him the ability to kind of go it alone, if you will, on some of the tariff stuff and things like that. He'd basically declare an economic emergency and really be able to just make some of these decisions tariff-wise without having to go, which I thought he already had. So, but anyway, that was the article this morning. That's what they're looking at. Trump's team did not comment, similar to the Washington Post article that we saw there on Monday. And that kind of sort of the opposite reaction, right? Kind of a similar opposite report, so to speak. Like this one, the one on Monday would have been like, oh, okay, we're going to do these blanket sort of tariffs, but it's going to be far less than what we thought. It's going to be directed at critical imports. It's, this is a difference in approach. Whereas like today is like, oh, okay, this is what we thought it would be. And you're seeing the dollar move higher as a result. That's pressuring the wheat market, and soybeans were up. They tried to trade a couple higher here overnight, and now they're down a couple as we wait to see what else happens today. So that's point one. What is Trump going to do with trade? And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. When it comes down to it on what we're seeing happen there.
It's funny enough for myself and Michael Brown, who is listening in, actually. Hello, Michael. We were speaking about this morning. And we spoke about this, me and you, Angie, have spoken about this a couple of times. We're going to have a lot of this until, for the next quarter, 2 quarters, aren't we? 4 years. Yeah, you're very right.
If you like it now, you're going to love it then. Like, wait until we're, we get to talk about it here in 2020. Well, in 2029, we'll be wrapping up. But still, it'll be one of those things that, we're going to see some continued volatility. We're going to see some pretty big price movements, price swings until we know a little bit more about what is going to happen. But I'm going to always kind of lean on more of the side of caution and like, okay, take your worst case scenario and let's water it down just a little bit, because that's probably going to be the more realistic, approach. And so that's where we're at. Trade, all about trade. And that's, we got a new dose of info this morning that, kind of not the greatest if you are one that is optimistic that we aren't going to see sort of this. I don't even know if it's bad or not. But anyway, I digress. South American weather is also on our radar, no pun intended.
Oh God! Sorry. I'm going to stop you there. Sorry, you used that pun yesterday. You get 3 strikes and you're out, so don't use it tomorrow, please.
You can ask my customers; they will tell you I have a bag of puns, and I just pull out the same ones each time, depending on market situation. It's all I got. It's all it's all I have. Don't take it from me. But we are watching what's going on in South America. We're seeing more in the way of rainfall build into southern Brazil here in the extended forecast, 8 to 14 day. And so southern Brazil is where it's been drier. Northern and central Brazil is where it's been a little too wet. Parts of Brazil here, Mato Grosso averages around 10 inches of rain in the month of January. And there's been parts of Mato Grosso that have been seeing 2 to 4 times the normal amount of rainfall here over the last few weeks. And that is less than ideal when you're trying to get a crop towards maturity. Now, at this point, we're not really hearing much in the way of crop reductions in that area, though we are starting to get some concern over the safrinha crop and whether or not we see some continued delays in planting. The extended forecasts that I looked at this morning called for, a little bit cooler than normal temperatures and a continuation of heavier rainfall across much of Brazil. So it'll be something to watch here because if we're still discussing
Oh,
this third week of January, that's sorry, you lost me for a minute, phone call. I'm back. But if we're still discussing it the third week of
yeah.
January, it is far, going to be far more problematic than what it is right now. If things look like they'll dry out and the farmers are able to get in February and all that jazz, then it's not going to be as big a deal for the safrinha crop. But if we're looking at a continuation of wet weather well into February, that's going to be a big story, mostly
Yeah.
for corn, though we will start to hear about soybean logistics and some of these other things being impacted. Argentina's weather does look like it'll get slightly better. 8 to 14 day does bring more rain in. Biggest thing with Argentina right now is that they are backing off on some of this extreme heat that we were seeing. And that's more worrisome from a production standpoint to see heat build in and some of that stuff. And so we'll be watching, but the huge concern over weather is backing off a little bit, though I think, in reality, we're probably just all adjusting to the fact that these really, really lofty ideas, like we already were talking about how the South American crop was going to grow 500 to 750 million bushels in the
Yeah.
year ahead versus a year ago. Well, for a while there, we were talking that it may have an additional 5 to 750 million bushels worth of potential growth on top of, and
Oh,
that
right.
makes you kind of want to
Yeah.
puke. That's not there anymore. At the very least, the conversation about it being there has grown a lot quieter. We'll have to see. Brazil is difficult to pin down because it's such a vast area of
Yeah.
production and it's such a variety of who's planting when and what kind of conditions and yada, yada, yada. But that'll be something that we'll be watching
It's,
here for
again,
a while.
forgive me for asking if this is a stupid question, but obviously Brazil being so big and across such a wide kind of swathe of the planet basically, that
Hmm.
is there a case of obviously we got the corn belt in the US, right? So obviously most people are planting and harvesting at the same time, the same
Hmm.
type of and stuff. But in Brazil, because of the range of temperatures you have throughout the country, do we have like almost multiple seasons within Brazil, or is that not the case?
No, you do. You
If
have your
that
dry
made
and
any
your
sense at all. In my head, that made
yes.
perfect sense what I was asking.
No, it does. It makes sense. It makes total sense to me. Brazil's a little bit different than the US. Like the US is, you have what, April, May, until October, November for your growing season, depending. In some places it's smaller than that or whatever. Brazil is kind of September through April or May.
Right.
And so that provides them those two crop years. The biggest thing
Got
in
you.
Brazil, is or those two ability, your ability to plant soybeans and then safrinha. The biggest thing in Brazil is the dry and the wet season.
Right.
And so what you have now is we're in the wet season, obviously, and why the safrinha crop, why there's such a concern over, this delayed planting to safrinha is there are areas of Brazil that will run into frost risks starting in April or May, because they're on your outside, not so much in the center, but on your
Yeah.
outside areas, you'll have some frost risk. But the biggest thing is traditionally rainfall shuts off about the middle part of April into May. And so if your crop's not in the ground, if your corn's not planted by the end of February, you're running into finishing during that dry season. And that's what's most amazing to me is you go from 10, 11 inches of rain on average January, February timeframe to like nothing.
Right. Got you.
And here in the US, we're kind of just like if you look at Iowa's rainfall, like yes, they take in the majority of their moisture. That's why they're the grain belt, you know what I mean? Like if you look at
Yeah.
their rainfall amounts, the heaviest rainfall in Iowa tends to fall May, June, and July. But it's generally around the same each month. It's only maybe a half inch or more in June or July versus the
Got you.
others.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah,
Well, I can
whereas
tell
in
you.
Brazil, you're talking 10 inches plus each
Yeah.
month.
Well, I can tell you in London, it feels like that most months as well, about 10 inches, and it's freezing
Right.
cold.
No, thank you. I live in like we'll just call it like in Michigan because of the lakes, we have the cloud cover. We have lake effect
Yeah.
clouds. And so yeah, I feel like I get the London effect November through about February. And no thank you. No thank you. But yeah, so this we'll be watching, just really what's going on there. And then the third and final point for me right now is just kind of what's continuing to happen in China. That's what I want to pay attention
Yeah.
to. We're hearing more about quality issues of the corn that they have on hand, though we are hearing, folks say that they aren't going to be importing anything because they have plenty of supply available. Now, You get plenty of supply, but if it's of poor quality, you're going to have to figure something out. One second, I'm going to cough, so I'm going to mute myself. And so that'll be something that I'm gonna be watching really closely, is what are they gonna do when it comes to some of these quality things? And they're pretty widespread, but for the most part in China, you're not going to see any sort of shift in corn demand or any sort of shift in bean demand. That's the other thing that we've seen is they've been exceptionally quiet the last few days because they've been aggressive early on with bean purchases. And so we're coming into the lunar holiday at the end of the month. Like it looks like China is gonna be pretty slow from a demand standpoint here for the next 3 to 4, 5 weeks. And that's not great. Bull needs to be fed every day, be something that we're watching. But the other point that I want to throw out there that I think long term is probably going to be the story that we're discussing probably this summer into the end of the year. Is this industry support that China's throwing out there? And I think that's something to watch, especially because they're talking about energy production and agriculture. And so I will say this until I am blue in the face. The lowest hanging fruit out there for these economies that are trying to stimulate rural growth and domestic consumption and cheapen their energy costs while also lowering their carbon footprint is via renewable fuels, via ethanol, via biodiesel. And so those are things that I think we'll be seeing out of China. And I am watching very closely for any signs that they're going to take this sort of passion they have for sustainable airline fuel and some of these other things. I'm watching very closely to see that spill over into ethanol and, maybe some
huge,
other.
right?
Oh, it would be massive. It would be
Yeah.
freaking massive. I mean, China right now only has about 63% of their ethanol capacity operational.
Oh, so they already have the capacity. They're just
Oh,
not
they have
using
the
it.
capacity.
Oh,
Yeah,
got you.
Argentina, everyone. I mean, like the U.S. is really the only one right now that's actually humping and dumping when it comes to like utilizing our full capacity as best as we can. And not only that, we also have really kind of fine tuned a lot of the ethanol plants around the U.S. to where we're using more corn. We're
Right.
also exporting the heck out of ethanol and some of these other things. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, watch what's happening around the world when it comes to biofuels. Indonesia announced they're going to restrict exports of used cooking oil. China has also said that they're going to, basically make their used cooking oil more expensive. And so now you have to figure out, where these feedstocks are going to come from that are powering these increased blend rates. And so it's something that we'll want to pay attention to. And we have some sort of USDA report out on Friday, but we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Perfect. Well, I've learned a lot. I don't know about anyone else today. Just one thing. This show's basically for me. I don't care who else listens to it. I'm joking. One thing I did put up in the old jumbotron, whatever we call it, up in at the top of the spaces, a report, a headline out this morning that India, and I mentioned this because we've been talking about India, especially yesterday.
Yes.
We mentioned about the dwindling wheat supplies domestically, and we mentioned before Christmas that this could be something to keep an eye on. Potentially, India looking to go to market and buy some wheat and import some wheat. But this morning, India, it was announced that India is considering revoking a 3-year ban on futures trading in 7 farm commodities, including wheat,
Right.
unprocessed rice, and this comes after studies showing that if you try and manipulate a market and kind of the government tries to control the market rarely kind of rewards you kindly.
Weird.
And obviously, yeah, exactly. Right. We could have told you that.
How strange.
So it's and this again, it kind of all ties into we know that they're suffering over there at the moment, like with this dwindling demand, dwindling supply and stuff. So one to keep an eye on. Perhaps onion futures are just around the corner. But yeah, on that note, Angie, thank you so much as always, my darling, absolute rock star. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. I'm sure everyone here already follows Angie, but if you don't, please do. Also check out her website, Consus. They do awesome reports, and she's not going to say it herself, but they are really awesome and they are incredibly cheap. So go fill your boots on that. You've got a 7-day free trial as well, haven't you?
Yes. 7 days, Wink. I'm responsible for kicking out at day 7, and I'm not great at that.
So you're not meant to tell people that. Right, but forget you heard that bit. Sign up and make sure you pay. Don't take advantage of it.
Live? My bad. All right. Well, that's it.
Right, we'll catch you tomorrow. See ya.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.